Hi, welcome to the first episode of Runeterra's report where we look at the latest news about Legends of Runeterra. As we all know, Lee Sin has undergone some improvements. So as you can see, Lee Sin has went from 6 costs to 4 costs. And this is a significant improvement that I've been waiting for a very long time. Lee Sin has been such an exciting and interesting character when he first released, being able to dragon rage your opponent's creature and kill him by kicking the creature into the nexus. That was probably the most exciting part about the character itself. But the problem with Lee Sin back then was it was way too costly. It's expensive to cast. It takes 6 mana to cast it, and of course beyond that you also need to store up some spell mana in order to fully activate Lee Sin's ability. You have to activate its challenger by casting a spell and activating the barrier in order to fully utilize its ability. And with this improvement, by reducing the cost from 6 to 4, it makes it much more easier to cast Lee Sin and less costly, and it will make it hopefully more viable in the current meta. Being able to cast it on turn 4 and using some spell mana to activate its challenger and barrier can allow you to create very positive traits, to gain a lot of board advantage through Lee Sin's ability. So overall, I think this is a good change. And with that said, I think most of y'all have already known about these changes, and if you all have not figured out what kind of deck you all want to play with this new Lee Sin, y'all might want to consider 2 decks. These 2 decks are probably one of the strongest Lee Sin decks right now. The first deck is a Draven Lee Sin deck. Draven Lee Sin has been a staple synergy for quite some time. Since Lee Sin was introduced, this was probably one of the most viable Lee Sin deck ever, but it has never appeared in tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3 rank at all because Lee Sin is not that strong. But hopefully with this new improvement to Lee Sin, it will make this deck very strong. So generally, how Draven and Lee Sin works, Draven creates a Spinning Axe, which is a spell that allows you to level up Lee Sin, and it also helps to activate Lee Sin's challenger ability by using a Spinning Axe. And what is most important about Spinning Axe is that it's 0 cost. You only need to discard a card. So when you play Draven on the first turn, you create a Spinning Axe, and when you attack, you create another Spinning Axe. So this allows you to technically cast 2 spells or even 1 spell by discarding the other Spinning Axe. So essentially this is how the deck works. And of course you have cards like Sonic Wave that goes very well together with Draven. Because Draven has quick attack, you can use Sonic Wave to cast Challenger to put Challenger on Draven, and Draven can challenge the opponent's creature and just destroy them immediately without taking any damage at all. So essentially this is how the deck works. But what is most important about this deck is that is its win condition. How Lee Sin works in this deck is that you cast Might, which it gives +3/+0 and Overwhelm, or you use Kato the Arm to support Lee Sin. So you give Overwhelm to Lee Sin. So how this works is that Lee Sin, with his challenger ability and barrier, you go and challenge a creature, and of course you cast Might or Kato the Arm to give Lee Sin Overwhelm. So the first thing that happens is when Lee Sin levels up, is able to Dragon Rage the opponent's creature. So you kick the opponent's creature to the nexus first. So in that case, you deal 1 set of damage. And of course, once the creature is gone, after you activate Dragon's Rage, the second attack will happen. So in this case, with Overwhelm, it allows you to deal all the excess damage to the opponent. So essentially what this does is that you are dealing double the damage. So in this example, let's say Might is +3/+0 and Overwhelm. So Lee Sin becomes a 6/4 creature with a 6/4 champion. You Dragon Rage your opponent's creature, you deal 6 damage, and of course once the creature dies or gets kicked back into the deck, you deal another 6 damage on top of it because the creature is gone, and the Overwhelm damage will be dealt to the nexus. So that's basically how the deck works, and this has been a staple since Lee Sin was introduced, and you might want to consider this deck. This deck plays a lot of spells, and it utilizes cards like Claws of the Dragon. It allows you to summon Claws of the Dragon when you play 2 spells, and you also have cards like Eye of the Dragon to cast Dragon Link when you keep casting a lot of spells. Yeah, so this is one of the deck, and if you're interested, I will be posting the deck code in the description below. This deck was created by Mega Mogwai, as y'all know. Beyond that, I think The next deck that is very interesting to play and is very strong is Targon and Lee Sin together, combined together. So I think a lot of us has already played the Targon region for quite some time already, and we know that the Targon region has a lot of very small spells that is very cheap to cast and is very strong. So you have cards like Gift Giver that creates a gem in your hand. You have Mentor of the Stones that create 3 gems when it dies, and this creates like a 1 mana gem that can give a permanent +1 attack to Lee Sin here, and it can even heal Lee Sin up. So this is very useful, and it's not just the 1 mana cost. It's so cheap that you can use it to activate Lee Sin's Challenger and Barrier ability, and it can help to level out Lee Sin very quickly. You also have cards like Guiding Touch, Pale Cascade, that all can be used to buff Lee Sin here. So a lot of the cards in this deck uses combat buffs that allows you to buff Lee Sin. And you also have Zenith Blade, which is very important, where it can give Lee Sin the Overwhelm ability, so you can attack twice. You know, you Dragon Rage the opponent's creature, like what I said just now, and you can deal Overwhelm damage. And not just that, Taric is such a good card, you know. When you compare it with Draven, I think Draven and Taric are the best combination with Lee Sin itself. So Taric is able to copy any spells you cast on Taric and copy it onto Lee Sin. So you have a lot of these combat buffs that can be cast on Taric and applied to Lee Sin when you attack with both of them together at the opponent. And this makes it even better because you are applying double the combat buff and doing double the damage here. And besides that, you also have defensive cards like Bastion that is extremely useful in a Lee Sin deck. I think one of the biggest problems with Lee Sin was that it's very easy to deny Lee Sin's threat. You can Frostbite Lee Sin, you can use Vengeance on Lee Sin when he levels up to prevent him from Dragon Raging your creatures. But the thing is, using Bastion, you can grant Lee Sin a spell shield, which prevents it from dying, help Lee Sin to protect himself from other spells, which is extremely important here. And beyond that, Mentor of the Stones also grants a supported ally +2/+2, which can buff Lee Sin immediately. So turn 3, Mentor of the Stones. In the subsequent turn, when you have Lee Sin, you attack with both of them, you buff Lee Sin. It makes it incredibly strong. So overall, these are the 2 decks that y'all should definitely try out because they are one of the strongest decks that are out there right now. So of course, moving along from the Lee Sin's improvement, we also have a very big news where we had the new tournament hosted by Legends of Runeterra. And this is an official tournament that is being held in Europe. But of course, you might be wondering like, for our US watchers and our Brazil and Southeast Asia audience, you know, you might be wondering what does it even mean to me, because it's not happening in my country. But what it means is that what is interesting about this tournament is that it's an interesting tournament format that I have never seen before. You know, each team builds 9 decks weekly and it only reveals champions. So the team will ban 3 champions from opponent decks. So each team are forced to build 9 decks, and it kind of forces the players to not keep on sticking to all the decks in the current meta in tier 1. It makes it very stale, isn't it? Legends of Runeterra, a lot of card games are very stale because everybody always plays the best deck, but having to build 9 decks forces them to get out of their comfort zone, you know, look beyond the box and just be creative and create one of the most unique and best deck ever. And there's a lot of strategy that is being involved. And this makes it very interesting. We'll be able to see a lot of very interesting gameplay. And this is something that is important because if this tournament format works, they might introduce it in Legends of Runeterra. They might introduce a small tournament format where you can win rewards, you know, where you play in this format where maybe perhaps instead of 9 decks, you create like 4 to 5 decks and you get to ban your opponent's champions and you get to choose the kind of decks you want to compete with one another. And this makes rank, or perhaps the like Legends of Runeterra overall, the gameplay much more interesting and fun, isn't it? Instead of always playing rank, playing the same deck over and over again, it's damn boring. And you know, it just gets stale over time. And if you look at it, when the set gets released and 1 month in, the meta is settled, and it just doesn't feel exciting anymore. But with the tournament format, it makes things much more interesting. I think this is an interesting move, and I think most importantly is that, you know, with this tournament, we will bring more attention to Legends of Runeterra, which is very important here because Legends of Runeterra on Twitch, as you all know, hasn't been doing very well. It has been stuck in the middle. You know, you most of the time you see it's average about 1k to 3k, 4k viewers on Twitch, and this will of course bring more attention to Legends of Runeterra. Yeah, so I'm definitely very excited about this tournament, and it'll be interesting to watch. This is the first tournament. I think we are coming to the end of the Runeterra report. I hope you all are enjoying it so far. So to end the Runeterra report, we'll be looking at the flavor text of the week. So this is a segment where I talk about my favorite flavor text from one of my favorite cards. For this week's flavor text, we'll be looking at Taric. So as you can see, Taric's favorite text says that, why should Taric show his fellow man kindness? Well, he came to Targon a broken man, intent on climbing the mountain to atone for his sins, and he succeeded. Nobody knows better that all broken things can be made beautiful again. And this is such a touching and interesting flavor text, isn't it? Because as a Legends of Runeterra player, I haven't played League of Legends before, and when I first saw Taric just seems like a very egoistic, very boastful, prideful kind of character that is very annoying, that he likes to step on other people to get forward in life. But what is interesting about this flavor text is that it shows that Taric is not such a person. You know, he's a broken man, and he actually had climbed the mountain to atone for his sins, and he gained a lot of power just by climbing the mountain itself. And now he's repaying back to people and helping people. And this totally changed the image of Taric in my mind. You know, at first I thought he was such an asshole, but actually he's not. All these feelings of boastfulness or pridefulness, this is actually a sense of optimism that he's espousing, that is trying to help people and being caring and all this instead of being negative. And this is something that is very interesting about this Taric character, and hopefully, you know, with the subsequent release of the remaining portions of the Call of the Mountain set, we get to see more flavor text that is related to Taric. So that's the end of the report, and I hope you all have enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it or found it useful, please like the video and comment below and let me know, because I'm not quite sure, you know, is this even worth doing at all. If you all have enjoyed it, then perhaps it's a good idea to continue doing it for the long term. So that's all for today. Thank you.